two reptilian figures holding the badge of the Knights Templar, one of the major secret societies of the Illuminati. There's a bigger version of it. Very appropriate. When you enter the City of London, you pass these things on the side of the road. And the City of London connects into the Temple. The Temple is named after the fact that the Knights Templar own that land at their temple there. The Knights Templar still run the City of London and the Temple area, which is the center of the legal profession. That's where Tony Blair and his missus trained, and the barristers and stuff, and Inns of Court and all this business. They still control that today. And where the Temple meets the City of London, in the center of the road, is this another reptilian figure. Just a coincidence, nothing to worry about. So what you have all over the world is this recurring theme, which only when you kind of open your mind to this, you start to say, bloody hell, it's everywhere, of the dragon and the reptilian imagery. I mean, in the East, in places like Japan and China, where there was also massive interbreeding in China with these entities, it seems, you have the dragon at the very heart of the culture. The Messiah, the word Messiah, it seems, comes from Mesa, which is the Nile crocodile, because the pharaohs were anointed with the fat of a Nile crocodile as part of the coronation. And it also breaks down as anointed one, which is what the word Christ means, anointed one. All these things interconnect in the end, as we'll see as we go along. Even biblical references to the devil have a reptilian serpent imagery about them. This is from Revelation. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Over and over, this same recurring theme. This is a painting that Credo Mutwa did on the side of one of his huts, which is symbolically telling the story of some of the stories told in the ancient African history and legends. And where do I find this again? But on the logo of Alfa Romeo. Extraordinary. And on the other side of Alfa Romeo, you have the red cross on the white background of the Knights Templar, the very elite secret society within the Illuminati bloodline network. Silvio Berlusconi, who's just got back into the leadership in Italy, has in his garden that same imagery of the serpent with a human in his body. And he's a major secret society operative, he is. He was in the infamous P2 Freemasonry Lodge that came to light in the late 70s and led to the guy, Roberto Calvi, the banker connected to P2, being hung under Blackfriars Bridge just down for the road from here. And then around the fairy stories and the other kind of stories and folk stories, you get this recurring theme of the frog prince, the serpent prince, shape-shifting into a human prince or a princess doing the same, and so on. It's remarkable how consistent it is all over the world. And today you've got children's books and stuff which are talking about reptilian morphing into humans and stuff, and what we call shape-shifting. Now, of course, when you're talking about this for the first time, about shape-shifting, I mean, people go, crikey, what is he on? Because understandably, what they're perceiving is a solid body changing into a solid body. Not possible, mate. Yeah, no, I agree with you, but I ain't saying that. Because there is no physical, therefore there's not a shape shift from a physical solid body to another solid body. The Queen is a hologram, like we're all holograms. And if she shifts, it's because the hologram has shifted, the decoding system in the observer has shifted, not her physical body. And what you have are 3 different levels of control, though it goes on further. But that's for another day, another time, and a lot more research. But this is one level of it, which is the dark suits, as I call them. And I found this picture on the internet. I thought, how perfect. They're like hollow shells, holographic hollow shells. Not necessarily all of them, but significant numbers are. Others are just gophers who don't know what's going on and are just play the game without realizing the game they're playing. Behind them are those that operate in the shadows that I talked about earlier, who, no matter who's in power, what party or what name, the same shadow people are orchestrating events. As they say in America, it doesn't matter who you vote for, the government still gets in. And the government are these shadow people who are there, whoever comes in and out with a rosette on or a name of a political party. And then you go one step back and you go out of this dimension, basically, or more accurately, you go out of the frequency range called visible light that we can decode and therefore see as a physical experience. These reptilian entities seem to operate, and again, it's not just reptilian. There are many different kinds of entities that do not have a human form that operate just outside of human sight, and history has recorded them as demons and all this stuff. But the reptilian part of it seems to be very significant to the controlling systems on the planet today. And they operate just outside of visible light. Therefore, we don't see them in the normal course of events. That's just basically like a ghost. When you're looking at a ghostly figure, most of them don't look solid because they're operating just outside of your frequency, just enough for you to perceive something, but not enough for them to appear to be have solidity. This is very similar to having a radio and it not quite being on the station. You can hear the station, but there's what we call interference, and it's not sharp. Visually, that's what's happening when people see these ghostly, ethereal type figures. So shape-shifting is not the movement from a dense physical body to a dense physical body. It would appear from the endless research that I've done and people I've talked to all over the world and all the rest of it put together, my own experiences sometimes, that what we're looking at are these hybrid bloodlines. Because of the hybrid nature of the DNA, the software program, they have a vibrational sympathy with that which interbred with them. And this doesn't have to be physical interbreeding either, as I'll come to. And so these bloodlines can be, quote, possessed, their emotional, mental faculties taken over much more easily than the general run of the population does not have that hybrid DNA, thus that vibrational sympathy, compatibility between the two energy fields. So what they're doing in effect is using the secret society network they've set up to manipulate these bodies into power, but in doing so, they're putting themselves into power because they're controlling the mental and emotional processes of these vehicles. Now, when we look at, say that's a major politician or something, when we look at him with our 5-sense sight, we are going to decode that level of him that is operating with invisible light. So what do we see? We see a human. But behind him, just outside of that frequency range, we'd see something very different. And I've met endless people who've seen it, who do have that ability to move their visual frequency range further than the norm. So what is happening is, with shape-shifting, or one way that it's happening, is sometimes that energy field just outside of visible light moves in to that frequency range. It sometimes happens when this vehicle is going through great emotional turmoil. I've had that story told to me many times when people have seen this, the circumstances surrounding it. And at that point, this energy field enters visible light and becomes the prime forward energy field. and then it goes back again. To the observer, who is decoding that energy field through the brain and turning it into a physical experience, what he observes only in his head is human, non-human, human. Did you see that? But it wasn't physical. It was a change in the decoding of the brain of the energy field it's observing. And this interbreeding can happen without coming into the physical, because these are energy fields, and these energy fields can send down genetic codes down into this reality. It's horrible to think about, but I've talked to a number of people around the world, women, who've been in captivity in places like the Mormon network in Salt Lake City, who have been taking part in rituals, obviously forced to take part, who are being raped on sacrificial altars under the Mormon church, other places too, and other organizations, but I'm just thinking of one in particular. And she told me, and the same story I've heard elsewhere, she looked up while this rape's going on, and around the rapist was this ethereal, non-human figure. Through this energy connection, things can be sent through to affect the genetics, the software program of the child that results from that situation. Because to them, like I say, they know it's a computer, and they know the computer software can dictate behavior and perception, and they want puppets. It may sound strange, but I feel for a lot of these people in power on the human level, because they're just puppets themselves, like bloody robots. Here you go. A lot of these people are not in control of their own perception. And this is why, what they do a lot is they'll target someone. What they want to know is who's got the bloodline and who hasn't. Because this bloodline genetics won't manifest itself in cold-blooded behavior and all the rest of it that we see unless those codes are open. It's like having a computer. It's got lots of codes, but unless you open them, it doesn't affect the computer screen. In other words, the reality of the computer. You have to open it. And what they do is target a lot of these people this is why they want a DNA database. They want to know who's got it and who hasn't. And that gives them, obviously, a great way of finding out. And then they target these people, and suddenly these people who know nothing about it, they're suddenly sponsored by very powerful people, and they become big in politics and law and all the rest of it. And through that, they get pulled into the secret society network, and they go through these rituals, and they think it's just some ancient ritual, it's just tradition. They don't realize that what these rituals are designed to do is to affect them genetically, to open these codes. And how that manifests itself in experience is of seeing people who, for instance, came into politics with a good intent to try to make a positive contribution, and they end up, after a while, being the absolute epitome of everything they came into politics to challenge, because there's been a process of personality takeover. It's not always for that reason, but that's one of them. So what we're looking at, I would suggest, but people make of it what they will, are fields where we decode the human one, but behind it is another one that looks anything but human. And someone sent me this picture. I don't know who it's of, but he's got very reptilian-type eyes. And a friend of mine has been working recently with someone who's been involved in a big iris scanning technological program. Not something I agree with, I have to say, iris scanning, but what he found, and he's into none of this stuff, what he found as these people looked very closely at 2,300 eyes, to their amazement, in his estimation, about 4% of the eyes they looked at were of reptilian type and appearance. All over the internet, people have started talking about this now, and these pictures are circulating. This might be probably is just a trick of the light, but it's very symbolic of what we're looking at. That was on the front of the 14 Times, taking the piss out of me. I thought, thank you very much. Nice picture. I'll have that. Very symbolic.